Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are finishing up Foundation Spoilers. The full set is now out and we've got some more rares, some uncommons, some sweet new combos, some sweet new synergies for the rest of the rares and uncommons here. So let's jump right into it with Abyssal Harvester, which is a 3-mana demon warlock, a 3/2, and it says tap, exile target creature card from a graveyard that was put there this turn, and create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a nightmare in addition to its other types. Then exile all other nightmare tokens you control. So basically, you can only kind of have one of these nightmare tokens. You can't just keep reanimating things every turn. However, if the creature dies somehow, then you can kind of get another creature back if it dies. I think just getting one reanimation, if it was a big creature out of this, is pretty good. So you could just play this on like a traditional reanimation shell with like Atraxa, things like that, if you wanted to, and make sure that the turn after you play this, you're discarding the Atraxa, for example. But I thought this was kind of interesting with creatures that discard themselves, because you don't even need a third sort of piece to it to make this pretty powerful. If you play this on 3 and then you had Trumpeting Carnosaur discard, kill your guy for 3 damage, and then tap this to get a Trumpeting Carnosaur um, token, and then discover 5. I think that would be pretty good. Same with like this Spinewood's Armadillo, other things that cycle, even in older formats, things that cycle or evoke creatures could be kind of cool. Um, it is also a demon too, which is a very relevant creature type because of the Unholy Annex, which is such a powerful card in Standard these days. So, maybe it can go in a demon deck, and if your demons die, you can reanimate them back. I don't know, maybe. The downside of this card is the 3/2 itself. It kind of dies to lots of removal spells pretty easily. But I do think it's got quite a bit of an upside. So, I don't know. I could see this maybe seeing some constructed play. Definitely an interesting and cool and powerful card, but fragile for sure with the body. All right, let's jump to the next card, which is Alenda Sa of Dusk, which is a 4-mana white and black 4/4 legendary vampire knight, and it has lifelink and hexproof from instants. Very interesting. I don't know if there's any other card that says hexproof from instants. I can't think of anything, at least that came out recently, that has that ability, but very relevant ability because there's so many removal spells that are instant, so it certainly dodges a lot of them. I mean, if this card becomes very popular, people would maybe switch up their removal spells and play more sorceries, and or just board sweepers. So it doesn't really dodge board sweepers or anything that like makes you sacrifice a creature. So there's that, but it is a relevant, I would say, protection ability there. And it's as long as your life total is greater than your starting life total, it gets +1/+1 and has menace. So a 5/5 menace life linker hexproof from instance. That's pretty sweet if you just have greater than your starting life total. So anything that boosts your life, like Case of the Uneaten Feasts, Elias Il Core, there's all sorts of different life gain strategies that may or may not be good in Standard. We'll see. There's already some decent support for these strategies, and this card I think would go right into it. Could be pretty good in like a mirror match or against aggressive decks. This seems like it has a lot of good uses. It also has one more line of text. Sorry, but it gets additional +5/+5 as long as your life total is at least 10 greater than your starting life total. So you have to be 30 life in Standard, for example. Other formats where you start with more life, you'd need to be gaining a lot more. But it's good against aggressive decks because of the lifelink body, but it's also pretty good against slower decks, maybe mid-range and control decks, because it gives you the chance to get your life total up pretty high because you're not getting attacked by those decks as aggressively as aggro decks. So this card seems pretty strong to me in a lot of different situations and against a lot of different decks. So I could see it certainly seeing play, and especially in a life gain deck. Obviously, you want to be gaining life to really maximize this. It itself gains life, so that could be interesting um, to do things around that. But we could probably just kind of slot in right to sort of the white-black life gain strategy. All right, next up we've got Loot. Loot is back, the Exuberant Explorer. A 3-mana 1/4 legendary beast noble, and it says you can play an additional land on each of your turns. And then tap 6 to look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from among them and put them into the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So, interesting effect, a powerful effect here. Um, Again, this card kind of dies to cut down, which is unfortunate, making it not 100% like super powerful. Makes it fragile, I guess is the right word to use. You can use it with like bounce lands. We do actually have Arid Archway, which is kind of nice with effects that let you play additional lands because that kind of counts as 2 land drops essentially. So it's also decent like with Land Elves if you're just playing in a ramp deck. So I kind of like the card because it ramps you if you have extra lands, um, and also is a payoff for the ramp that you're using to look at the top 6. Now, what? All right, sorry about that. I added a Overlord of the Boil Biggles, which is what I was thinking about. Overlords for um, loot to kind of have that maybe the red green kind of ramp deck. There's like Smuggler Surprise kind of decks. Maybe that could fit into that kind of shell because having Overlords you can kind of cast earlier, but also kind of hit them off of the loot could be pretty sweet. So I think maybe in sort of that red green ramp style deck, there could be some amount of loots as well to as a top end, both a ramp card and a top end payoff for that deck. So an interesting card. You probably don't want to play too many because it's legendary. Um, but yeah, definitely a cool loot card. All right, next up we've got the Knight Squire, a 2-mana cat scout, a 1/1. And it says whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. As long as this creature has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has flying and is a knight in addition to its other types. So definitely a powerful effect. The ability to kind of scale up very quickly. For example, with Hop to it in the bottom right here, this card could become a 4/4 flyer on turn 3 if you go this on turn 2 and this, and then hop up to put 3 counters and convert 3 creatures into play, and then attack for 4 flying. And then as the game goes on, say you play Release the Dogs on the following turn, now you have an 8/8 flyer, along with all those other tokens. So this card's really got a high ceiling on it. It can get a control pretty quickly. It's also a cat for maybe the cat deck. If you're a cat deck fan, certainly this would probably see play in that deck. But I'm just trying to think of what are the best token producers. It could go in the sort of red, white, some of them splash blue as well, red, white tokens lists with Gleeful Demolition, things like that. It has infinite combo potential with animation module as well in older formats like Pioneer and stuff. I believe that's legal in Pioneer because animation module says whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are placed on a permanent you control, you can pay 1, and if you do, you create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact token. And then this gets a +1/+1 counter whenever a creature comes into play. So you can see as if you play another creature to get the counter on this, it'll trigger the animation module, pay the 1, get another creature, which triggers the Squire. So as long as you have extra mana out, it'll keep triggering it, and you keep putting counters on it, and you're making colorless servos now. Just the 2 of them isn't infinite, but if you had another, like a sacrifice outlet that gives you mana for a creature, that would go infinite there. But just the 2 of them by themselves are also pretty good. You just kind of pay an amount of mana to create that many 1/1s and put that many +1/+1 counters on it. It's pretty good. So yeah, definitely interesting synergy there with that card. All right, so let's move on to the Corsair Captain, which is a 3-mana human pirate 2/2. And it says when it enters, create a treasure token, and other pirates you control get +1/+1. Um, this works really well, obviously, with pirates, and pirates are a decent supported sort of kindred in standard right now. We've got the Spyglass Siren, which is a very played card, and Breaches and Malcolm and all sorts of other pirates, which are pretty decent. And this really works with the pirate theme too, which is to have sort of treasures or other sort of artifacts in play to take advantage of that because it itself creates a treasure. It also can let you maybe double spell on the turn you play it with the treasure to trigger Malcolm, things like that. So I think it has a shot at probably seeing play if you want to play a pirates deck. This is a good sort of top end lord for it, that deck. It's kind of doing everything that deck would want to do. It could also put you into like maybe a mono blue pirate deck. I don't know if that would be good, but you could go that direction. But usually the pirate decks are blue and red. So that's the Corsair Captain. Next up, we've got Death Baron, another Lord here, 3-mana Lord. This is a classic reprint here, 3 mana for a 2/2. a zombie wizard, and it says skeletons you control and other zombies get +1/+1 and have death touch. So there are some decent zombies that are here. Probably the best one is the Diagraph Ghoul, or the new one here. So their zombies are getting some support, which is kind of cool. There are some other ones. If you just do a search for zombies in standard, you'll find what's available. It kind of seems like the skeletons are actually maybe the better of the two tribes here, because we also have Corpse of the Lost, which is a really powerful skeleton lord and sort of effect that gives all your skeletons additional power and haste, which is very powerful, and puts a two black skeleton, and then it can kind of, you can rebuy this. So that's a very powerful effect. But having another lord for skeletons might be worth it and good to kind of make that deck powerful. It itself isn't a skeleton; it is a zombie, so it is works perhaps better in a zombie deck with other zombie synergies. But skeletons kind of is more the supported tribe, I would say, overall, or has a higher power level. So you could try it out in both, see what works. If you have two of the Death Barons, they do pump each other, which is kind of nice. Giving death touches is also nice. Some of the skeletons and zombies aren't, super huge, so having death touch can be certainly relevant to help them sort of get through blockers, which you kind of want to be aggressive in both these kind of strategies. So we'll have to see. This might just be more of a sort of like new player card, not super constructed worthy, but worth trying, I think, for sure. Okay, next up we got Rise of the Dark Realms. Exciting new source, not a new sorcery, but reprint sorcery, which is 10 or 9 mana total. Not 10, not quite 10, but put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. So this works with your opponent's cards and your own cards. So if you're milling your opponent or you're milling yourself, it's pretty good. Or making them discard, or any creatures that you've killed, you'll get those back. So definitely a very powerful effect. Obviously 9 mana. You're probably not going to hard cast this very often, but there are ways to cheat it in to play. Probably the best one is Reenact the Crime, because it works with things that are going to the graveyard, and you're kind of already wanting things to be going to the graveyard with this. So if you played Jace, for example, on turn 3, you plus it maybe to negate one of your opponent's creatures, or their creature goes up to 4, then you can mill yourself for a bunch for 12, right? For 12 cards, and then if you hit a Rise the Dark Realms in one of those 12 cards, you could reenact it and then get all the other creatures back that were also milled in that Jace, or anything previously that was put into your graveyard or your opponent's graveyard from that turn. So a powerful effect. May see some play. Could be interesting. Maybe there's other ways. I'm not thinking of how you could cast this. Reenact the Crime is sort of the best one I could think of. But let me know in the comments below if there's other Rise of the Dark Realms combos you can think about. All right, next up we've got a couple new cards here that I just didn't really know what to do with. They just don't seem that great to me, but maybe I'm wrong about these. Again, let me know in the comments below what you're thinking about. But Red of the Dragon Caller is 6 mana for an enchantment. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. So that card's interesting. I mean, obviously you'd want to put it in like Spellslinger decks to get a bunch of dragon tokens. Once it's in play, it's very powerful, obviously. But 6 mana, you're like dead on turn 2 in standard these days. So like a 6 mana, it doesn't really do anything when you play it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure that is going to cut it. Certainly maybe a fun casual deck, but maybe there's a way to make this good that I'm not thinking about. But I just don't really see it, unfortunately. I mean, the only thing I could think of is like plot spells. When you plot them and then you cast this and you plot and you get some dragons. But then again, the dragons don't really even have haste. Maybe if the dragons had haste, this would be worth it. But I don't know. And then next up, we've got Lathril, the Blade of the Elves, which is, I know, a very popular commander card. Probably good there. It's 4 mana for a 2/3 Elf Noble with Menace, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you create that many green elf warrior creature tokens, and then you can tap 10 untapped elves, and each opponent loses 10, and you gain 10. So a powerful effect, obviously. I just feel like if you have 10 elves already in play, you're probably already winning, or have won the game, maybe. Not sure. It could be wrong about that. You could put this on Agatha's Soul Cauldron to get the effect. on in your elf deck or something like that. But you know, having a 2/3 that doesn't really do anything the turn it comes to play for 4 mana, again, you really have to like play stuff that impacts the board to really be a highly competitive constructed card typically. Maybe it's like a one of in elves. It does make you have to play black in that deck, in an elf deck, which also is kind of a downside to it. So I don't know. I'm just not really kind of seeing it in constructed, but again, let me know if I'm wrong about these. Okay, next up, one of my favorite cards in the whole set. That's what's called Revenge of the Rats, which is a 4 mana sorcery. Create a tapped 1/1 black rat creature token for each creature card in your graveyard, and it has flashback for 4. That flashback is huge, I think, on this card, because what you want to do is play this in a deck that has a bunch of creatures that mill other creatures, like the Urborg, Lorgoyf sort of strategies, right? So you're playing a bunch of creatures that mill other creatures, and you just kind of fill up your graveyard, right? And so this will be milled in that sort of deck. If it didn't have flashback, you'd have to naturally draw it. But the fact that you can just mill this to get the effect is quite powerful. Gives you a lot of incidental sort of value from your graveyard. So you can imagine there being, I don't know, up to 10 maybe creatures in your graveyard over time in the sort of Urborg Lorgoyf style of decks, right? And then you just kind of flash back and get, uh, you know, 10 rats late game if that's what you need. It's kind of sweet with, thought it'd be cute with impact tremors. Um, the rats do come into play tapped, so that is kind of a problem because you can't like get them haste or anything, or use them to block the turn that you do it. But if you had impact tremors, it would just like ping them for that many. So maybe that's like a cute combo in there. But maybe there's other ways to use the rats. I mean, rats is sort of a supported kindred tribe in standard as well to some extent. So there are some like rat synergies that you could maybe play this in. But I think it's best in just like maybe probably like a green, black, or Sultai sort of self mill strategy. All right, and then last up we've got the Good Fortune Unicorn. I'm not sure if this is a reprint or not. I think it might be. It's green, white, and a colorless for a 2/2 unicorn. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because it's got some infinite combo potential here with any persist cards. So it says whenever another creature you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So with persist, for example, the Kitchen Finks, if it dies, it comes back, right, as with a -1/-1 counter, but then the unicorn will put a +1/+1 counter to negate the -1/-1 counter. And then if you had any sort of sacrifice outlet, you could kind of go infinite, or just all your persist creatures just never die, basically. So that's kind of cool. And again, it also does go combos with animation module again. So anything that when a creature comes to play, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. This time the servos would get the +1/+1 counters, but that would trigger the animation module again. You could pay 1, get another servo with a counter on it, pay 1 again. And again, if you could like get mana for each servo or sacrifice the servos for mana, that could give you sort of an infinite loop there. But by themselves, it's limited by how many lands you have. But just tapping 1 mana for a 2/2 over and over and over again is pretty strong. So um, something to be aware of. So that is basically what I have for the set review thus far. Next up, I'm going to be doing sort of the top 10 infinite or instant win combos with Foundations cards and new combos that are coming up. So pay attention to the channel when this set releases on Arena on the 12th. I'll be having gameplay videos for all the new combo decks I come up with. And if you have any suggestions for combo decks, I'd love to hear them too. What are you looking forward to? What are you most excited about playing with Foundations and Standard? I play all Arena formats, mostly Standard, but any suggestions for like Explorer, Historic, Timeless, I'm all ears, and just love to hear and think about new combos. And I hope you do too. If that's kind of your vibe, and you love to just kind of have fun playing wacky standard decks that are usually somewhat competitive, but mostly more in the fun, try to do cool, fun, exciting things in standard, then that's what this channel is all about. So hope you are enjoying the set reviews. Again, yeah, let me know what you think about this new set in the comments below. Every like and subscribe means a lot to me, and really appreciate the support for the channel. So thanks so much. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.